All right, folks, today, Clint Emerson, a fellow former Navy SEAL and a survival expert, joins us to discuss how the survival skills and mental toughness can empower us all in our daily lives.
Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness. All right, hey, welcome to the show, everybody. We got Clint Emerson working with us today. If you want to learn more about Clint, head to the show notes to learn more about him and to learn all things Men Talking Mindfulness. Just head to mentalkingmindfulness.com. We appreciate you being here. And hey, if you're feeling up to it, leave us a review or share this with your friends. Clint, great to have you today. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Jon, Will, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're excited about this, man.
All right, we're just going to drop in. Let's do our one breath. Let's ground our asses into this moment and find a little bit more of our breath. And so let's just empty out, maybe close the eyes if that's good for you. Good. Take a big, giant breath in. Really big. Biggest breath of the day. And let it go out nice and easy. Awesome. All right. Clint, well, Jon, you're gonna kick us off here. I feel.
Let's do it, man. So we're just gonna jump right in. So Clint, I love what you're doing, but I'm curious. I know there's a tie between SEAL training and survival, but how has that shaped your understanding of awareness, kind of preparedness, and those survival skills, just in general?
Wow, it's a big question. I tell you what, the awareness piece is anchored. So I did this short stint at the NSA. It was like 3 years. And at the beginning, I built this course. It's the AFO course, Advanced Force Operation course. I worked for Admiral Callan at Warcom. There was only about 6 of us. We built this whole world in the special activities realm. And you had AFO and ASO. ASO, the Army owned, and they were already running it. We just managed billets of the SEALs that went there. But AFO was ours, and we were really proud of it. It was my baby for a while. And that was probably where awareness truly came to life for me. We hear about it in platoons and when you're doing your workup and paying attention and this and that, but never to the depth of when it's time to do anything under the surveillance umbrella. Sure. And under that umbrella is so much. There's physical surveillance, technical surveillance, there's counter surveillance, there's surveillance detection. And there's 3-month courses for every single one of just those few things I aimed. All of them rely on awareness. And so I feel like it's an overused word when it comes to paying attention to your environment. But not there's not a whole lot of information out there really how to break down the awareness piece in the cycle of it all, because the reality is our brain is not a computer. We don't have the ability to look at everything in an environment, aggregate all that information, put it into all the right folders, especially the red folder, which says threat on it. It's very difficult. So awareness is more about the preemptive piece. Like what can I learn and what can I expose myself to first so that I calibrate the mind to the environment I'm about to walk into. Really simple. Right. If you're going to go on a vacation to, let's say, Cancun, well, the first thing I'm going to do is sensitize myself to the crime and to any of the things going on in that moment in time down there, right? Because you'll hear about Mexico holistically as, high crime, kidnappings and all this and that, right? It's the Mexico of the 80s. But we had a big gap there where it was completely safe and people just went freely, never had any issues. But now you fast forward to today, now you've got, human heads rolling up on the beach in the tourist areas right now, right? Yeah. So it's very much back kind of sort of to the way it used to be. But if you were just rolling with it based on what your friends said in their vacation 2 years ago or this or that, then you're kind of going into it unaware. So point being is, in order for awareness to really work, you have to know what you're looking for ahead of time. And once again, I coined a phrase in one of the books. It's, if you are paying attention to everything, then you will see nothing. And because we're not capable of doing it.
Right.
So,
too many data points.
Yeah. And so awareness really boils down to, hey, okay, now I need to sensitize my mind to the threats is really what we're concerned about. THREAT. And so you do the research based on that acronym. So the first T is technical threats, right? What audio, video, tracking devices could be used against me, right? And these days with chat, I mean, we all should be very aware now because it's just all you do is ask chat a question. It's going to give you the most detailed answer ever. So you could literally type in, what are the technical threats for China? And it's going to tell you plenty, right? H would be health threats, right? So what are, any of the diseases or,
the water.
Yeah, your food, water, anything that could be a health issue. You literally type in, what are the health threats for, Mexico? R is raids, robbery, and ransom, which are your most violent crimes. Then you have E, which is environmental. That's the tsunami, the typhoons, any of your big environmental threats. A is agencies working against you. And this is one of those invisible threats we never really know until we start researching it. But law enforcement, foreign intel services, organized crime, any of those working against you, they're everywhere. We just don't think to look into it. Cartel.
Yeah.
And then the last one that we all know very well is terrorism. What terrorist threats are there in the area I'm going to? So if you just threat the environment or the country or the city that you're going to ahead of time, now you can actually be more aware, right? Yeah, and there's a whole other piece to this. And, it's not just situational awareness, because if I do the threat matrix before I go into an area, okay, good. I know what to look for now. But there's a lot more to it. The other piece is personal awareness. Like, okay, I got to look at myself in the mirror before I walk outside, because anything I'm wearing could target me. It could offend someone. You could inadvertently.
The ugly American.
Oh, yeah, definitely American.
Right.
Just this ball cap alone. Most of the time, it's only an American. Sunglasses, only Americans. Intimidating shirts with knife companies on it, that's American, little secret squirrel logos. That's American, right? It's, there's so many things that I'm wearing right now that, people be able to spot you. Just my tattoos alone, it's, hey,
sure,
that's an American. He's got the American flag on his arm, So projection and demeanor management is a big part of awareness, right? And how to be the gray person. Then next to that is cultural awareness, because knowing the social etiquette and protocols for a specific area allows you to make allies versus, enemies. And I can tell you from experience, the business card that you collect from someone off the street is far more valuable than the phone number to the State Department, And especially if you get into trouble, it's a local that's going to have the ability to help you more than some, State Department guy at the embassy. And that's just reality. So cultural awareness is a big deal, obviously. And then last is third-party awareness. Okay. I can go into the area. I can understand the threats, THREAT, but you have to understand what's the reciprocal. Right. And that's third party awareness. Who's looking at me? Right. It could be the grandma up in the window that knows you don't stand out because at 4:30 every day, walking down the street, she can name every person on the road. But here comes Clint. That guy doesn't fit in. It also, third party is a lot of times, that could be criminals. It could be law enforcement, foreign intel. It could be just the squatters that are sitting there on the side of the road that just pay attention to everything. True. But knowing that level of third-party awareness is also helpful. But the way that you bring third-party awareness down is by increasing situational, increasing cultural, and increasing your own personal awareness about yourself. So if you take those three and really focus on them, now you're becoming more the gray person, and the third-party awareness piece starts to come down further and further and further the more serious you take the other three. So long answer, but awareness is a big world.
For sure.
Yeah,
And you know, for some of our listeners, you identified AFO, Advanced Force Operations, and then ASO is Advanced Special Operations. And you know, a lot of those schools are basically, like you said, just identifying how to look a little deeper into things, right? Like if I remember correctly, there's you know, you have to write how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and you have to write every single detail, and it's multiple pages on this, just so you know how to be very thorough in your reporting. Funny enough,
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yesterday, I was meeting with a guy, or actually working with a guy, fellow team guy, and he had just gone to Cancun last year, and he said when he landed there, he had not done, you know, the typical. He went on his own on a vacation, right, with his wife, and he hadn't done the typical country brief and everything that we do in the teams. And when he got there, he felt very unprepared. He felt like his spidey senses were on full alert, but he hadn't done the homework. And I was like, man, yeah, I totally understand that, because that's what we got used to doing in the teams. You understand what to look for. And then this class that I was teaching is all about beginner's mindset or growth mindset. And we're just in a hotel, like conference room. And I was like, okay, I want you guys to look around, walk around this room, walk around the hallways, and see, you know, how to get into the building, how to get out of the building, where's your AEDs, where's the fire alarms, like stuff that people just take for granted. They just walk into a building and they don't even notice it,
right?
But you have to be aware of that. But then I'm taking it one step further. Okay, so yes, there's an angle saying, hey, look to be aware of your surroundings, but also as a leader, that awareness carries forward to your people, right? There's a lot of ways people are telling you messages without actually saying them. And if you're not being aware, then you're missing this. And as a leader, you have to be aware. So just funny that you should mention the Cancun piece, because I literally had this conversation yesterday with a fellow team guy. So over to you, Will.
No, I mean, I've done thank you for bringing this like up and out. Like it sounds like you obviously with the SEAL training, you've had lots of awareness, lots of preparedness, lots of situational awareness. So why is it so important for, you know, the layman, like people without like a military background, important to, you know, access this stuff and learn, you know, the kind of threat assessment or not a really assessment, but the threat
what it is.
Paradigm is an assessment. Yeah. Like wherever you are, I mean, you're talked about kind of vacation, you know, which is, that's been very valuable for me to know. And I kind of learned the hard way in some ways. Like I've traveled different parts of West Africa into East Africa, which are fascinating places. And they talk about like Americans, they just see white skin and they're like, they have certain names for us. I mean, they just think like all sorts of assumptions come up. So why is it so important for like, you know, the people outside of the military to just be this aware, and what does it do for them to have this level of awareness and actually, or even also create and work for this level of awareness?
Yeah, I think simply put it, you know, safety, security, and survivability, right? Those three S's.
Yeah.
I think, you know, especially like during the pandemic, it became the forefront of everybody's mind when we ran out of toilet paper, right? And it was like, wait, there's shelves and shelves of rice and beans, but the toilet paper is gone. And at that point, it was like, okay, this country needs a reset. You know, because if you
thank you for saying that.
If you go back like 100 years, like every single person in the family knew how to survive, right? Knew how to get it done, whatever it was. And of course, you know, when you have industry kick in and technology starts getting developed, you know, we've lost a lot of our skill sets. And when you lose skill sets, having skills and using skills on a regular basis, believe it or not, is like, you know, on the mental health side. And also when you talk about something as simple as awareness, you're not paying attention to the details anymore when you're not really out doing things, using your hands, or you're outside. You know, if it's your first time to use a table saw in a while, you know how imagine a table saw, and if you've ever used one, it's been a while, and you knock the dust off of it. You're kind of like pushing the power button, and you're very cautious because you know it's been a while and you know this thing can take my thumb off. Now, all of a sudden, you're paying attention to every little detail, right? So I kind of compare it like anytime we let go of certain skills and not really out doing anything, then obviously you're going to lose a lot of that mental capability and skill as well that supports getting the job done. And so why do people need to pay attention? Yeah, for threats. But it's also as simple as, I can have my seatbelt on, a full tank of gas, and still get T-boned going through an intersection. I did all the right things. But if you're paying attention, we've all had close calls when we're just driving down the road.
Sure.
But, I let people at a red light go first, right? Let them go out and get run over by the guy who wasn't paying attention because he's on his phone. That's what I mean? So little things where just paying attention and keeping your awareness somewhat high, could potentially get you out of a life-threatening situation you didn't even know about to begin with. And of course, on the safety side, awareness is extended, all the way through and through. I kind of compare it like my day job is, corporate crisis management. So I'll go into a lot of companies and build all their policies, right? No one wants to do that stuff. So I do it. It's OSHA, it's state compliant. It's everything from their business continuity plan all the way down to, like a major healthcare provider. I did their entire home health. They had the largest group of nurses going out into homes. And I had to teach them awareness because they're walking into a home, right? Everybody knows what time she's showing up, right? The neighborhood gets sensitized that she comes twice a week, right? These are Medicaid, Medicare type neighborhoods. They're not, the friendliest. And so for her, occupationally, awareness became her biggest weapon and tool, right? So that's just keeping employees safe. Now, if you just think about that, okay, now I'm going to a grocery store or I'm somewhere visiting and I end up in the wrong grocery store on the wrong side of town. I have no idea that this is the wrong side of town because I've never been there. Right. So maintaining your awareness, even though it seems exhausting, following some simple protocols goes a long way. And it's still anchored to the things I talked about earlier. Hey, okay, so am I wearing anything that looks attractive, has big, expensive logos? For women, it's like hair down or a ponytail. Well, ponytail serves as a handle. I wouldn't go with the ponytail. If you could put your hair up in a bun, that's great. Is it the heels or is it the flats? I would go with the flats because, that allows me to run. Make sure you got shoes on that you can either fight in or run in.
Yep.
Pants versus skirts. There were so many things that you start rolling through just on the personal awareness side that most people don't think about if they find them when they find themselves in a bad situation. I'll just stop there though.
Yeah. Well, like the shoes, right? That when we were overseas, not necessarily in a combat zone, but like when I was in the United Arab Emirates or in Bahrain, they always said, hey, you have to wear closed-toe shoes. You can't wear flip-flops, which in the SEAL teams, wearing flip-flops is like the thing. But then, right? But then you go out to these areas where there could be potential threat against Americans that we always had to wear shoes. And initially I was like, why do we have to wear shoes? I want to rock my flip-flops. And they're like, well, because if you need to run or if you need to fight, wearing pants, wearing shoes, that was a mandatory thing. And then, coming back to the everyday person, something that I was having a discussion with just the other day, or with some folks with just the other day, is your awareness with like Uber and like Facebook Marketplace or whatever. People would just go to other people's homes, or have some random person coming to their home to pick up some piece of kit or whatever it is they're buying. And for me, if I'm selling something, I'm like, I want to meet in a neutral place. They don't know where I live, so like I'll meet in a Walmart parking lot. Same thing with Uber, right? I'll have Uber pick me up to take me to the airport, but I won't have them pick me up at my house. I have them pick me up like 100 yards or several hundred yards from my house, and same thing in reverse, have them drop me off. I'm like, yeah, this is my house, because who knows who that person is, right? Now they have your address.
For sure.
So you got to be aware all the time about potential threats. I also don't want to like completely scare everybody, like thinking that the world is just a huge threat, but there are threats out there that we have to be aware of. And then we have to be able to tie that. I want to take it like one level deeper, if you can, Clint. just awareness. You talked about yourself, like what it is you're wearing and stuff, but also what you're saying, how you're acting, body language that you're projecting,
Huge.
Emotions that you may be projecting. And that could be, as a threat to, or being perceived as a threat by others, but also in the business space, like what are you projecting that way? Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, sure. On projection demeanor management, I defined it. Projection is anything. I broke it down kind of militaristic, right? It's first line, second line, third line gear, right? First line is standing in the mirror, basically butt naked and going, okay, am I going to offend anybody today? Or where I'm going?
Right.
It's your skin, right? And you got to be very self-aware these days, unfortunately. Second line is obviously anything that touches your skin and the clothes you wear on top. Third line is, your backpacks and stuff like that and accessories that you may carry with you, and then demeanor is verbal communication, nonverbal communication, your body language, all of that. So I always compare to the guy that likes to talk on his cell phone really loud at an airport so everybody can hear,
that drives me nuts.
like how important he is.
Of course.
Which
so important.
In return draws in that third party awareness where the entire terminal is staring at this guy like, what an idiot, what a moron. Why is he doing that? But I also compare it to the hot chick. Like if a chick is dressed to the nines and she cruises by, what do all us guys do? We're like, yep, you notice it. So these are all your projection demeanor pieces. And it really boils down to this is everyone has the ability to scrutinize and judge you without ever knowing you, meeting you, or hell, even seeing you if it's a loudmouth on his phone, right?
Right.
And we all do it. Consciously, subconsciously, we all talk about people watching. We all love people watching.
Yep.
There's not one person I've ever met that says, I hate people watching. No, we all do it. And that is the exact.
Airports are great places for that, man.
Yeah. And
Airport and Walmart.
Yeah. The international terminals are the best.
Yeah.
And those are the places where, obviously you can learn and then take those lessons learned. And that's when you're going to apply it to the city and spaces that you're going to go visit. And, I agree with you like that on the demeanor side, how you stand and how you present yourself, even how
100%.
You shake hands from one country to the other, eye contact from one country to the other, your choice of words, hand gestures. We all know this is cool when you're coming up out of a dive and you're saying like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Or you want to tell somebody, hey, okay, but this is also asshole in some countries, right? So
or white privilege, like some
white
some
privilege,
people, white privilege, there's all sorts of ways that can be interpreted.
Exactly,
it's crazy. And showing the soles of your feet in the Middle East. If you sit there with your feet crossed and you show the sole of your feet, that's an insult. You have to be aware. Again, a cultural awareness that you said before.
Yes, you're right on. So I think you really. And that's the beauty of like getting out there and traveling from time to time is, you'll go into it, the dumb American, if you haven't done it or it's been a while, but you'll come back not so dumb American because you'll feel it, right? And you'll see it and you'll see the dumb ones and go, wow, I look just like them right now. And I don't want, I don't want to look like them or feel like them right now. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Well, Clint, how do you, you must have said the word threat several times, and I totally get it. And I appreciate what you're bringing, to the show, what you're bringing into the world. But how, do you also go out and enjoy yourself? Because we're in a heightened state of awareness, right? And we often talk about the show as like fight, flight, or freeze, being in that sympathetic nervous system. So we're in the ready, but we're also not of our right mind, where we can really take in that situational awareness and kind of observe things in the grander view and then see okay, I need, something's got to be done over there but nothing needs to be done over there. So how do you also enjoy yourself, at the same time on these vacations or, leaving your house without thinking someone's going to come from behind you and take you out in some ways,
No, it's a great question. It's pretty easy. For me, I gamify it, right? So
that's just awesome. Me too.
And I break it up into pre-crisis, crisis, post-crisis, because you can get all hung up in the nervous system, which is great to know as a foundation. Because that's really the why. But when you get into the how, it's more, okay, what's my pre-crisis checklist when I go into a restaurant? I'm initially it takes seconds. I'm looking around. I'm understanding where all the exits are that I can see. I always check out the restroom so that way I can see the unseen. Because usually on your way to the restroom, you'll see more exits. I know that, okay, there's the kitchen. There's always other exits in the kitchen, right?
Have to be.
And then there's just that general like overview of, okay, who's in here? You know? What are they doing?
Yeah.
How do they look? What's their projection and demeanor? Which doesn't take long at either. You know, and then when it's time to sit down, you're still taking it in. But to me, it's a checkoff list that I just have fun with. And it's become like this muscle memory thing that I'm doing it all the time while still enjoying that great piece of steak, or I am, you know, having a good conversation. But in the conversation, I'm not allowing myself to be so focused that everything else becomes blurry. I'm still keeping the aperture nice and wide open. You know, I'm still looking at you guys, but I'm still but I'm also paying attention to the FedEx lady who's going to come walking up this window over here. You know, so carrying on the conversation, having a good time, but also staying alert enough to know that a good day can go bad at any given moment, and it's not to be paranoid. It's just, you know, hey, general safety. It kind of it's fun for me at this point. Like I said, you gamify it with a checklist that you know you're going to do. It's always rolling, you know, and as soon as you get the last little box checked off, they all go blank and you just start over, right? So that makes it's not just a one-time deal. Like, okay, I'm safe, right? It's just, hey, it's this constant little check. Okay, who's around me? Exit's still good to go. Okay, nothing there. Da da da. And still enjoy the environment.
Well, I think it takes some practice too. You know, like I live in New York City. I mean, there's 8 million people here. And it is packed. Yeah. And it could be a zoo sometimes, right? And like as you're talking, I'm like, oh fuck, like just even before I walk into the subway, I smell first. Like, is there an awful odor on the subway? And I'll go to another car. You know, but there's a lot of different strange people on all sorts of drugs, lots of different homeless people. And I'm like, I know how to like scan a homeless person, you know, look, what are their shoes? How dirty are their shoes? If their shoes are really dirty, they're really kind of fucked. They might be a problem, right? So I'm just make sure I watch. Or if their shoes are kind of clean, I'm like, oh, well, they're just having a bad day or they're just trying to rip me off for some money. But also like what you mentioned earlier, demeanor, it's like how important, and I guess it's a good question, like how important is presenting yourself in a confident, calm, right? But like I'm ready if shit goes down kind of thing. Yeah. You know, because I feel, I think
go for it. Once again, it's more of like the environment. I'd say in New York, walking with confidence, paying attention, all technology put away is definitely beneficial no matter where you are.
No, very true. True.
But there are some cultures where you walking with that kind of confidence can also make you stand out. So, you know, being
right. Yeah, no, you know,
it's
your
almost
people.
like keep your confidence somewhat internal, and you know what's going on through your own eyes. But trying to look as neutral as possible on the outside, but not to look like also a great potential target or victim. You know, because that obviously get away with that. But I think if you're walking upright, no technology, head on a swivel to a certain degree, you're not looking paranoid. You're just looking around. That's the 99.9% solution. I mean, it's really easy, but it's very difficult for people not to be scrolling while they're walking, or they got their earbuds in New York and they're in this weird little zone listening to Joe Rogan and they're not paying attention to anything, even though their eyes are open. You can tell they don't see anything.
Yeah. Right.
You know?
Oh man, I see that all the time. Again, in the airports is like my number one is people are always on their phones, or in even. I don't have subways here in Colorado Springs, but the train at Denver International. Yeah, everybody is on their phones. Like, I bet you they wouldn't be able to tell you, you know, what size, shape, or color the person next to them was. That tech, you know, when you talked about the T for threats being the tech threat, sometimes we're holding that tech threat in our own hands, right? Like we're taking away from our own awareness right then. So that's a challenge that prevents people from achieving that highest or heightened state of awareness. What are some other potential challenges, and maybe even more specifically for men, to prevent them from achieving that heightened state of awareness?
I think we've all driven from point A to point B and don't even remember the drive, right?
All the time. Yep.
That's a great example of, I'm not on my phone. Well, I'm not. Most people shouldn't be. But most people, I think, they're prevented from being face down in their phone when they're driving, because or else they'd just be wrecking cars left and right. But that fog that we get into goes back to, number one, there's a muscle memory, when we drive from point A to point B, that's inherently there, and you just don't, you get so in it, there's certain landmarks in your mind that may stand out that remind you to exit or whatever it is. But the reality is okay, that's you consciously going to sleep, and you have to take that moment and think about things. And that's why I say gamify all this type of stuff, because it does keep you alert, and if you have the checklist, can be whatever you make it, by the way, as long as you're paying attention. It could be near to far. It could be the alligator in the boat scenario. I got the alligators in the boat, the alligators outside the boat, and the alligators coming at me. And
the gator closest to the boat.
You're dealing with what's closest, and working your way out. It can be scanning, like a camera, near to far, near to far, near to far. I mean, there's a lot of tricks you can do just to pay attention in your environment, which then keeps you consciously available for whatever may go wrong. But I think the answer is other than technology being a distraction, we are our own distractors based on what's going on in our day.
Yeah.
If I'm stressed out about something at work, it's easy for that to take over, and you go blind and you go deaf and you just don't know what the hell's going on around you. Relationship issues, right? You got one thing goes sideways in a relationship, then all of a sudden, boom, that's plugging every bit of your sensories or any of your senses, and preventing you from being, present. And so it's a conscious effort to remain present. Right? I mean, you've got to okay, I'm here right now. I'm listening. I'm paying attention. And you gamify it however you can. But I think that we are our own worst enemies, far worse than technology. Is simply we let things get in our heads. It sits, it bakes, and before you know it, we're fried, and we're not able to really do anything.
Yeah, that muscle memory, man. I got into that big time in Virginia Beach, driving basically the same route to and from work, same time. I knew exactly which lane to be in based on the time that I was driving. And what helped me kind of break out of that was I ended up having 5 different routes to and from work, and I would leave at different times. So that would always change the quote unquote scenery. So I had to stay alert. I saw things that I normally wouldn't see because I had that heightened state of awareness. It was really fascinating. The same thing as when you go on the same route that you've been on 100 times, but you're in the passenger seat. You're like, oh my gosh, I've never noticed that bar over there. Or there's all sorts of things. So it's pretty wild, the muscle memory and how that can affect you.
For sure. And I would say, just to add to that, Jon, is you're bringing up a great point. When we talk about pattern of life in the safety, security, survivability world, by having multiple routes, you're breaking up the pattern of life, because what a bad guy relies on is knowing your pattern of life and then determining the vulnerabilities in it. So great point. And doing this is probably too far, but I did do this occasionally. Like if I saw a certain car, I mean, it's kind of like, James Reese in the Jack Carr books, he's always doing surveillance detection routes. I would do that in my young days. I was like, oh man, everybody knows I'm a frogman, so they're probably following me. Right. The Russians are on
do the loops. Yep. Well, maybe they are these days.
They're listening to all the podcasts. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's right. All right, Will, what you got, man?
No. I mean, you guys bring up a really good points, and one of the big obstacles is get out of the fucking house, man. And that house can be get out of the typical patterns of doing things. Put yourself, if you want to be more aware. I mean, this is I've been in New York 20 years, and I've traveled to I don't know, over 24 countries, and some of them are
2,000.
Oh, no, or 220. Sorry, over 2 dozen. Sorry,
Oh, 2 dozen.
There's even 2 dozen.
Oh,
sorry.
you said 2 dozen. Sorry, I thought
2
you
dozen.
said
Yeah, that's
2,000.
okay.
Like, whoa, man.
Yeah, and it's really helped me to like just be more aware. I mean, be more aware of cultures, like you said, Clint, are super important. Like I went to Thailand a while ago, and I just wanted to, for me, I guess part of that preparedness is just assimilating into the culture. So I was like, I studied how they ate, and because I don't want to offend, I want to assimilate, and I also want to respect the people around there. Maybe they're going to respect me if they see me eating in a certain way.
Yeah, sure.
But like, I mean, you got to get out of, and when I say get out of the house, it's like you guys have mentioned as well, get out of the typical patterns of doing things, break things up, right? So therefore, we're called to be more aware, whatever the new circumstance that we're in. So we actually develop, some more confidence about situational awareness and like my place in new situations and how I'm going to manage myself. Could you give us, Clint, can you give us like a story, like maybe outside of the military where like all of these like things kind of worked because of a particular circumstance that was threatening came up for you?
I mean, what's crazy is while I was still in, I got pulled into first it was the AFO world and then ended up doing a whole lot of solo deployments. Right. And there was a dozen of them during the Arab Spring. Right. And they were in different capacities doing different stuff. I'll give you an example. Like there was one trip where I was going and my sole job was just to put a tracking device on the driver of AAA. So AAA was Anwar al-Awlaki. He was the famous AQ guy with the little glasses on. He was an American citizen. And he lived in Sana'a, Yemen. And as soon as we had killed bin Laden, he became number one. But he was the most influential al-Qaeda terrorist of all times because of his videos. He had a magazine called Inspired, which taught people how to make bombs and S-vests and all kinds of stuff. And back then, YouTube allowed all of his radical videos to be on the internet. And so when you look at how much he influenced, he's the reason why we take our shoes off at the airport, right? The shoe bomber. He influenced the Boston Marathon bombers. He influenced the Fort Hood shooter. I mean, there's at least a dozen or more major incidents of terrorism that he directly influenced and contributed to. So he became, and he was always a big target, but he was very elusive, and there was a lot of debate because he was a U.S. citizen. So anyway, I fly over, and it's time to okay. At this point, CIA had missed on 3 different drone strikes on this guy. That's why we call them the clowns in action. Okay, clowns in action. So anyway. So then when they really need something done, they call it SEAL teams, right? So I go over and I check in with the embassy, and I get at the embassy, you get a SIG, you get a bunch of cash, you get a phone, a little thing of SIM cards, a couple other items, nothing crazy. Get all my stuff, kind of get situated. I know what I'm there to do. And I leave the embassy. So number one, the phone they gave me was the battery. This was back before batteries were embedded and before all your smartphones these days, the battery is embedded and you can't remove it because the batteries have their own processor now so that it can make the phone more energy efficient, last longer and all that shit. But back then you had phones that could remove the battery. So it's in a baggie, a Ziploc bag. The phone is in there. The battery's in there. And then a separate little thingy that had my SIM cards. I grab it all. I get in my car. Now I'm going to go stay out in town where I was staying. And I'm driving. I get probably, a couple of miles away from the embassy. I exit, to go make my way stair step to this neighborhood that I was staying in. And I take a right-hand turn and boom, there's, 1,000 people. It's Arab Spring. If you're not familiar, Arab Spring is when the entire Middle East had this
2011,
moment.
right?
Yeah, it lasted for about a year or more. I mean, it was all over. It started in Tunisia when
Tunisia,
a
guy
female
burned himself, right?
Yeah, he was slapped with a female cop or something. It was really weird, but then he doused himself, lit himself on fire. And there was like this religious movement through the entire Middle East. And I found myself in the middle of, 1,000 people in my car. Once they realized, you mentioned, like you're the white guy, right? That was me. I'm in their neighborhood. I'm new to the area, obviously. I've got a gun. I've got comms. Guess what? It's not charged. Got SIM cards. Guess what? They're not in place. I've got my embassy badge. That's going to do me no good. In fact, I was like, kind of trying to tuck it away and make sure, I don't want this thing being seen. Didn't matter. Before you know it, they've surrounded my car. And now the car is starting to go back and forth, right? Then they're getting more violent. Now the wheels on the right side are coming off the ground, left side, up, down. I'm trying to inch forward, but, it's a Walking Dead scenario, and I, if I start running people over, I'm going to high axle this thing and just have spinning wheels. I ran through I could pull my gun out and try and, but I'm going to run out of bullets. It was just overwhelmingly outnumbered and in a horrible position. So skills, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm paying attention. Now I'm starting to go, wait a minute. Like, let me just look at these people individually. And off to the right, there is, keep in mind, intertwined in this riot was, not riot, but this mass demonstration, if you will, were like military dudes, uniformed, AK-47 slung over his shoulder. And he was standing just off my right bumper, and he was looking at me, and he had like sympathetic eyes is all I can say. I looked at him, he looked at me, and I was kind of like gave him the universal sign for peace, right? Hey, you want peace?
Money?
I've got peace, and for those of you not watching,
for those listening,
you just rub your fingers together and it represents money.
Money talks.
Which I definitely had a shit ton of government money on me, right? And so I was like, I'll pay this motherfucker. Like he will not have to work for a year. So I'm like, here you go, money, 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 buddy. And he's like, okay, and all of a sudden we're best friends, and we hadn't even said a word to each other. And so I told him, come around, I'm pointing him over to the passenger door, right? And I'm kind of like, you got to get in fast because, we don't need any. And I'm like, and actually I said, hey, use your gun. And so he turned around, he put his back to the passenger door, and then he pointed that gun at the immediate crowd. They all created a bubble big enough for him to get in the damn car. And then I'm reaching across, like making sure it's locked, and I'm locking all the, electronic buttons, and he gets in, and then I'm like, all right, point it at the windshield. And so he pointed that rifle at the windshield. And, that's when like the temperature of a country, like when the cops point their guns, they actually run. Whereas, with us, you're kind of like people point a gun at you, they're kind of like, whatever, like people in this, certain countries, they know that there's rules of engagement, or, hey, you're a cop. You're not.
It's when they break out their phone.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, exactly. They stick around and start filming. But these people, spread. They like went all directions. I was able to gain enough speed, and it was it went 2 blocks, took a right, another 2 blocks, whatever it was, pulled into this gas station, gave him a stack of cash, told him, shukran, I really do appreciate you, man. And, we had a little bit of laughs, smiles, never really said anything to each other. And then he got out, took his money. And, I remember because as soon as the door opened, it was the sound of a couple of folks that were getting gas. I could actually hear birds. All of a sudden, your senses after a moment like that are so heightened. And you realize, man, I take for granted, the peaceful moments because that was the one moment, regardless of my previous combat experience or any of the other like crazy shit that you do operationally, especially when you're by yourself and all the success and all the failure solely resides on you. It's the best feeling in the world. But those little moments of the peace part where you're like, wow, I got to take advantage of this more often, because I could have just gotten my ass ripped apart back there.
Totally.
And just hearing those basic noises and the, creature comfort items that we just don't even pay attention to these days. Right. It was, it was a moment, but when you anchor it to like everyday awareness, it kind of goes back. Like I was driving an area I didn't know, right? I'd been there before, but I didn't know that there was protests going on. Nobody told me. And then, paying attention to the people in front of you, paying attention to your cell phone, making sure it's put together, making sure it's 100% charged before you go out the door. Make sure you have your charger with you, paying attention to that projection and demeanor of others around you. Yeah. Most of them didn't want me there, didn't like me, whatever it was, but there was the one that was like, hey, I kind of feel for this guy. Yeah. He's in his car, he's minding his own business, and he's got, you could tell there was something about him that was like, why are we even treating this guy this way? He didn't fucking do anything to us.
What's the point? Right.
And so, I feel like, when I saw those sympathetic eyes, it was a huge lesson learned, and interestingly enough, I ended up, not the same kind of situation, but the reality of doing solo AFO is that not only are you, sometimes living a persona and, traveling by yourself and dealing with just all the operational stress and shit going on in your head 24/7, but you're also going to inevitably also deal with what any business person, tourist, or anybody else is also facing at any given moment. So it's like, it's real easy. What I noticed real easy in the position I was in to be distracted by the things I knew I needed to get done and all the things that, okay, I'm here, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do that. And then totally forget about that. Oh, wait a minute. I could have a flat tire. And then what, or, oh, I didn't even check if I had a damn spare in this car before the embassy gave it to me. You know what I mean? Right. So it's like, there's so many things we just take for granted. We get in the rental car and we go, but we don't bother, and for your listeners, it's worth doing. I learned this from I went through a surveillance course with the British course with a bunch of SAS guys, and they use this acronym POWER, POWER, which is, for any time you get a vehicle, it's a quick checklist, right? So P is for petrol. Okay. Make sure you have a full tank of gas. O is oil, right? Make sure you've got oil, and make sure you have some extra quarts of oil with you just in case. Water, make sure you have drinking water, but also make sure the radiator has water, right? E is all of.
I'd say wheels too. Sorry, check your wheels. Right? Make sure your wheels. All right, anyway, okay, sorry, brother.
And then electronics, right? That's everything from my handheld GPS to my comms to making sure the vehicle electronics panel and everything is reading and the gauges are normal. There's no warning lights, no engine lights. Right. And then R is rubber. That's the rubber under the.
Oh, okay. Oh, got it.
Rubber under the hood, all the hoses, no dry rot, everything's sealed, no leaks. Your tires, your spare tire, right? All good to go. And it's real quick, it's easy, but there's always those moments when I'm like, man, it could have been worse, but it wasn't. So, anyway. Yeah.
For sure, man. And, that also, it applies to if you're going overseas and you're potentially going to be in the middle of a riot or a demonstration, like you mentioned. But it also applies to like here in Colorado, right? You fly into Colorado in the middle of like January.
Yeah.
It's freaking cold.
Yeah.
And if you're doing a long trip, you better know where you're going. You better have some type of blanket or some type of water, like you mentioned. You definitely won't want your vehicle breaking down. If you're going over a pass that you need chains or something, you better have that.
Yeah.
Or you could be screwed. I mean, I hear stories every winter about people who've flown into the area, got their rental car, two-wheel, rear-wheel drive, and they go over a pass and they crash off the side and nobody knows they're there and they die.
Right.
Not because the crash killed them, but because the environment killed them and they hadn't prepared for that environment. They weren't aware of what was required for the potential out there. So I like that power. I think I'm going to start using that.
That's actually really good. Yeah. You rent some cars, John. So
yeah,
it's really good.
It's a good tech. There's a lot of those. I got a whole book. So it's important to know that.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Escape the Wolf, the book. because it's also my company, but there's a story behind that. When I first started that solo stuff, I didn't know what I was doing, right? No one told us. Like, Burt Callen was basically like, figure it out. And we're like, okay, sir. So, you call up the CIA. Hey, you got guys that travel alone? Yeah. Can you teach us how to do that? No. Call up, some other JSOC units. They're like, hey, you got guys that travel alone? Can we come through something? No. Yeah. So it was like, all right, well, we're going to figure this out on our own. Right. And, so, you go overseas, and my first gig, I went into Djibouti, and I was hanging out at Camp Lemonnier, and I was supporting those guys, and, and I made a bunch of mistakes, and I'd come back each time, and I filled up this 3-ring binder full of every single mistake I'd ever made as a solo traveler. Right. And then I was like, man, I think this is pretty valuable. And when I wasn't deploying, I was program manager for AFO. So I was like, man, I think this should be pretty good for everybody. So I started like duplicating the 3-ring binder and handing it out to students for free, and just made it part of the curriculum. And then eventually I sent it to a self-publishing company, just turns things into books. At the time, there weren't that many of them. And so they took it all and figured out how to turn it into a bound book, so it wasn't 3-ring binders, and I still would get boxes of them and still hand them out at NSA. And so anyway, this thing, and I just called it Escape the Wolf, based on Grossman's metaphor that became very popular for a while, and that's the sheepdog, and wolves, and this was all about escaping the wolf, and the wolf can come in many forms, THREAT, right? So anyway, the book ends up in the hand of a defense, into some defense contractors. That one defense contractor gives it to a guy named Joe Canamesa, who is a retired FBI guy who happened to run global security for the Wall Street Journal. And this was getting close. And now I've moved from NSA. Now I'm at SEAL Team 6, and I'm doing full bore solo shit all the damn time. And I get this voicemail back. That's when people did voicemails, right? So, and he's like, hey, it's Joe Canamesa, Wall Street Journal. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm talking to fucking Wall Street Journal. It's the last thing any team guy wants, right? And so, and he calls again. It's a long story, but eventually I'm like, oh, okay. It's not like some weird interview thing. Because I was at the command when there was a lot of drama, right? There was Bin Laden. There was, No Easy Day, the fucking book that came out. I mean, there was so much shit going on. Like, it wouldn't be surprising if media just called SEALs direct, which they did. There was a guy at the New York, I can't remember where he was at, New York Times, who just wanted to like destroy that command, and he was always writing negative articles about it. But yeah, so I called Joe back. He's like, I got a copy of your this little book here. I'm like, okay. He's like, yeah, I need you to teach this to all of my journalists. And I was like, I'm in the Navy. I don't really know what the fuck you're talking about. But so long story short, I ended up going up there. I met with him, and he like literally held my hand on like, hey, this is how you take a book and turn it into e-learning. I turned that whole thing into e-learning, and then
nice.
Awesome.
Yeah. And when you talk about like for guys, like if you're thinking about taking like a leap of faith, or you feel like you're taking a little bit of a risk, good. Right? Because I put $60,000 on my USAA credit card without one contract in place with the Wall Street Journal to pay for that e-learning. Right? And I just was like, let's see what happens. Fuck it. And sure enough, he's like, I gave it to him. He reviewed it. He loved it. And was like, all right, how much? I'm like, I don't know. $61,000. He's like, yeah. He kind of, gave me this subliminal like thumbs up, like, hey, crank it up a little bit more. And I just kept, going back and forth with him, like, $100,000, a little bit more, 150,
Nice.
a little bit more. So anyway, that
beautiful.
is when the book transitioned into the company that now I've had
business.
Since I got out. So anyway, yeah.
Fantastic, man. Good leap of faith there.
And congrats.
Be dumb. Eventually you'll get smart.
Congrats. It's nice to see like, oh, somebody just happened to get my book. Another guy got the book. And that's like, when you put yourself out there like that, I mean, and really add value, like this is the things that can happen. So congrats on that. Well, for our community that's listening, like, they're absorbing all this information. Like, where do they start? Like, what are the first maybe 1 or 2, 3 steps to start to develop this situational awareness and to kind of alleviate the threats out there, or just be more aware for the threats that might be, out your door?
Yeah, somewhere? I think really it's all about paying attention to, I think, starting with what's close to you and paying attention to the details. You'll hear that in the military, attention to detail. And what I found is when you actually do that, it becomes like the muscle memory we've been talking about. You find yourself doing that with a lot of stuff, right? It's not, if I'm paying attention to my desk right now, where the keyboard, the mouse, my phone, everything that's how it's associated, I'm a little OCD. And so I like everything in alignment or in some kind of organizational manner in front of me. And when you do those small things in front of you that are within arm's distance, then now you'll start to see those discrepancies everywhere. And it's crazy that, okay, I'm paying attention to how things are situated and maybe even changing how they're situated to something a little more comfortable for me. But then as your vision clears that 3-foot area that you can touch and goes beyond, now all of a sudden you're paying attention to the details of not just the car in a parking spot, but now I'll see a car in the parking spot that its right tires are hugging the right line of the parking space. And then be like, that jackass, because he just took away, a couple of feet for me open up my door if I choose to park next to him. Is that making sense?
Yep.
We all pay
100%.
We pay attention to that type of stuff. Now you take that thought process and you go, okay, now I'll apply that when I'm driving down the road. How often do I look at the people next to me at a red light?
Right.
We don't.
Yeah.
We just sit there, look at the red light, listening to our podcast in a total zone.
That's when people break out the phone and they're checking their emails while they're sitting
or
there.
your head down. Yeah. Like I was, I got my pilot's license, a long time ago, but if your head down in the cockpit, that is not good. Right.
Yeah.
Get your head
What's
out
that famous story about the whole crew getting wrapped up around the one light and then crashing the entire passenger plane into the side of a mountain because they were so head down in the cockpit.
I would even say that's what happened in DC with the helo.
Oh yeah, the helo.
Obviously, I think everyone had their head in the cockpit all at once, and that's a freak accident. But that's exactly how bad it can be if you're not just looking outside your windows, But I think you've got to start what's closest and nearest to you, paying attention to the little details and kind of stair-step your way out. And then, of course, what's fun for guys is, okay, be the great guy, right? If you're going to read a Jack Carr book or any of the Jason Bourne stuff or whatever, I mean, we all aspire to be assassins. I mean, come on. I talk about it at least every other day to the, man, how can I figure out how to just, I don't know, maybe be a vigilante, be Batman, whatever I can be. I just want to be that.
I got my Batman up there on the shelf, man.
I know, man.
Oh, my God.
But so for those listening, hey, be the gray guy. Don't be the one that stands out. Go start looking at it. If you got a side of your closet that's like all intimidating 5'11" badass gear, and then you've got your Target clothes, wear your Target clothes every day. Let's leave the intimidating, G.I. Joe shit, for when you're going, to the shooting range. But the rest of the time, wear your, your little polo and your penny loafers and your calculator watch. See how it feels. I know you might feel like a pussy. You will. You'll feel like a pussy. But you will blend in and nobody will see you.
Right.
That's true. I mean, I always, when I'm out there people watching, the guys who are wearing their, their combat boots, their cargo pants, their cargo belts, their 911 or their 511 or 9-line shirt or whatever. And then, I don't know, what's the coffee company that's so,
Black Rifle.
Black Rifle. Yeah, I'm like, okay, yeah, they're the veteran, like the standard veteran.
Yeah, it's great to be like. Don't get me wrong. Obviously I show up with my intimidating hat, my intimidating shirt. It's a part of.
You're at your house though, man.
I'm at my house,
you're at your 10-acre compound.
It's part of but it is part of little something. For the most part, like DNA wise, right? It's just like, hey, I wear things I like, and I support brands I like, and. Or brands I'm an ambassador for, whatever the reason,
Sure,
I'm wearing
of course.
it. So it's, I'm guilty of it, but I'll tell you, when it's time to travel abroad, more times than not, you'll see me in either a polo or a button-up type short sleeve polo or a long sleeve. If I want to get rid of the flags, I'll wear normal slacks, normal shoes. Denim and khaki and joggers are still the three most popular pants you can wear when traveling around the globe. We all know what it is for women. It's only one thing. We all know what it is these days for women. Those damn yoga pants is all they wear. So for them to blend in, they've only got one choice. We've got three.
It's true, man. Everybody wears them when they're traveling, just for comfort, right?
Yeah. I wish I could wear those.
Yeah, as a matter of fact,
I guess I could.
Yeah, I'm upright.
You could, Clint. You could.
Yeah, then you would stand out a different way.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I'm traveling tomorrow. Not a high threat environment. I'm traveling to Sydney and Brisbane, but I've got my outfit selected already. It's much like I'm wearing right now: a black polo, some jeans, some black tennis shoes, and the jacket. I mean, nothing that says, hey, everybody, I'm an American. And which actually comes back to, the first line gear. So I've got this Hebrew on my wrist.
Oh, yeah.
And when I lived in Bahrain, so that's my left wrist. When I lived in Bahrain, typically I wear my watch on my right wrist. I would cover that because Hebrew could offend some people in the Arab culture, right?
Sure. Yeah,
so you got to be aware of all that stuff. So, all right, Will, I think we're coming to the end here, man. What else you got?
Just like, this is men talking mindfulness. Like, how can mindfulness, which is awareness, we kind of talked about it enough, but anything you can add, to this conversation to kind of close it up would be great.
Yeah, I think more down your vein of the mindfulness by definition, the first place where I was kind of thrown in to different ways of dealing with like mental health issues. I had nightmares, all that stuff, migraines, was NICO. And so it was very like limited when I went. They only took special operations at the time. It was only offered up at Walter Reed. You get admitted for 30 days and they basically, run you through the ringer of medical exams, but they also give you all the tools in the world that you can think of, or at least expose you to them. So they would have us imagine a couple of like spec op dudes doing yoga for the first time. You're like, and they're like, what the fuck is this? Like you got your hands in some prayer thing and you're trying to balance on one foot or whatever it was. But, you go, okay, does this work for me? Yes or no? And then there was a lot of breathing. I noticed you guys started this with breathing. And so they had us doing basic box breathing, right? It was like 4 to 5 seconds up, 4 to 5 seconds, I think, almost out, and then 4 to 5 seconds all the way out, and then 4 to 5 seconds in again, and then 4 to 5 seconds in even more, and then a little bit out, and then all of it. Is that right? Something like that.
It's like kind of in, hold, out, hold.
There you go. Yeah. I just butchered it, but you know what I mean.
No, you're good, man. Yeah, and then for our listeners, NICO is the National Intrepid Center of Excellence. It's a thing where special operators who've had some type of either post-traumatic stress or TBI go to address that as they're getting ready to get out.
Yeah, and it's great. I mean, you did 131 appointments in 30 days. And then at the same time, you're doing art therapy, music therapy, all the breathing, all the yoga. You're doing group therapy. You're doing one-on-ones. Really great. And then, since being out, I've also just kind of taken a little more serious, I guess, probably, a little more exposure and kind of seeing its benefits. But I think it's important for those guys out there. The reason I bring up the NICO piece is because this was very ego oriented. Your ego gets in the way of really learning because it doesn't seem manly or it doesn't seem cool. And when you're with the alpha of most alpha dudes, then if that makes it even worse, because, we're also going, imagine in a circle banging on a fucking drum and everyone's looking at you like, what is, boom, 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 boom. You're like, is this supposed to calm me? It's like, all it's doing is pissing everybody off. But you have to pick, at the time I used to say you pick your poison, but really, no, you pick the thing, go try different stuff, and you will find the one thing that works for you. And then I would say, once you find it, embrace it, make it part of your daily routine, and you'll be better for it.
Solid, man.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, one piece at a time, right? One little thing that works. I completely agree. This has been really helpful, Clint. Like, thank you. And Jon, you're going to say something.
I was just going to ask Clint for, as we wrap up, for our listeners, if they wanted to know more about what it is you're doing, how to find you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, go to clintemerson.com. Obviously, you can go to follow, but I got to say, I'm doing my best to become irrelevant these days. So,
well, thanks for coming on our podcast, Clint.
Well done.
I haven't done one in a while. I was like, okay. I don't post really that much anymore. I just,
I've noticed.
Concentrated on where I craft with Escape the Wolf.
There you go.
And the public stuff serves a purpose. I just never liked it. Honestly, I never. To sell books, you got to do it. And then I woke up one day, I was like, I'm just not doing this anymore. It's like,
good for you, man.
It's like, it makes you a happier person, by the way. It really does.
For sure. I can totally get that.
The fucking hustle, right? The hustle could be a calamity.
That's it.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
Well, right on, man. Just to respect your time. I know you said till the top of the hour. We're right there. And Clint, great episode. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with our audience, with us here. I mean, it was great. Learned a ton here. And I'll turn it over to you, Will, to wrap it up, my friend.
No, just big thanks, Clint. Like, I just really appreciate how tactical you're breaking all this stuff down. I mean, because you can really fuck yourself out there if you're not prepared. And it's taken me some time, like, because I've traveled alone to all these different countries and at different times in my life, and those first few experiences were rough because I wasn't prepared enough.
Yeah.
But through the experience, as I got more prepared, just my vacations became easier, because I kind of knew what to look for. I knew, how to check things. I knew how to prepare. And that's a big piece of this, right? How to prepare to take those steps forward, wherever you are. And it really makes a big difference. And mindfulness and awareness and the situational awareness you spoke of is all so incredibly important. So you can really, enjoy yourself as much as you can, even with all, the potential threats that could be out there.
Yes.
So this has been wonderful, Clint. Thank you so much.
Right on, Clint. Thanks for joining us. And for those of you who tuned in, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, take care, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Clint.
Thank you.
Peace, everybody.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.